I guess the best way to say it is everyone's freaking out.
Freaking the fuck out.
Everyone's freaking out.
Yes.
I told somebody yesterday that I feel like I am back in COVID days of stress and tension and fear, but we're not in COVID. And, working through COVID, that's a whole other separate professional experience that I
We
had.
might be in COVID, but since the CDC can't send out any
We
communications
wouldn't
and the
know.
NIH, we wouldn't know because tuberculosis is running rampant in Kansas right now, and who
We
knows
might
where
be
else
getting
it is
measles and
spreading to.
polio, Corey.
And exactly, like for real,
And
maybe we are in COVID. Maybe that's
Yeah.
our bodies trying to tell us something.
maybe it knows. And USAID being canceled means Ebola is going to run out
Oh,
of control in other
maybe we're in
countries.
Ebola. Um,
Maybe we're in a bowl of shit.
This is,
Okay,
who knows? Pick your next germ,
in
friends.
a bowl of shit.
Welcome to Pushing Past Polite, where we talk about what matters and make the world more just. I'm Laura.
I'm Corey, and we have a special guest today.
We do. I'm so honored and excited. First of all, I get an excuse to get on her calendar and see her during the workday, which feels like impossible for three working friends to even try. But a longtime friend of mine, but also a very, very accomplished professional has joined us today. This is my friend, Dr. Lisa Mazzio. Let me say your name again. I just stumbled over your name. How did I do that?
What were you gonna call her?
I said Lisa
Yeah,
Mazzio. I
yeah,
don't
what
know.
was
It was
that
like, your
coming out?
husband's name is Dan. I don't know if I was looking at the Mazzio and I went with husband instead of, because you're always squeacherini for me. Like, first, I have to work
that
myself
is
out of that.
yes.
That was a long time
Ooh.
ago.
Corey's alarmed at that word. Yes.
Oh, by the way, all Italian connections here. Corey's husband is Italian and Creole. Is that right, Corey?
Yep.
And anyway, she's been working on Italian citizenship and mapping that back for potential dual citizenship for her and her kiddos and him. So we got what are the
Fun.
last names on your side, Corey?
Kamalo.
Camalo. We got Squeacherini. We got Boconfuso.
And Mazzio, which is also Italian.
Oh,
So
And
that's
Mazzio.
true.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even
you-
think about that. I'm thinking Squeacherini.
Yeah. Go
I
down
love
the
it.
male bloodline, it's easier.
Huh. Okay, good tip. Let me
Yeah.
work on that. Like,
There was
hold
a
on.
period of time when, like, the woman couldn't pass her citizenship down through bloodline. It only came through man. And so if that person had the child before that year, I think it was 1948 or something, if the kid was born before 1948, then that pathway to citizenship isn't available to you.
Is a dead end. Well, smash that patriarchy. Bam. She said bam. Okay. So today we have with us somebody who's been very special to me for a long time. We met at the ripe young age of probably 18 and 19, somewhere in there. But she has since gone on to do really great things. And she is not only my friend Lisa, she is Dr. Lisa. Why can I not say it? I said
Do I
Lisa.
need to do this? Do I
I
need
don't
to do
know.
this?
There is only water in here. I don't
Why are you so
understand.
nervous?
I
It's
am.
Lisa Mazzio. I just met her today. Get it out, Laura. Get it out.
Get it out.
She's special to you.
She is,
She's
and
a doctor.
she's a
She's your
doctor.
friend for 20 plus years.
On that note,
Get it out.
yeah, don't trust me with the important jobs today. Apparently, I'm still coming to. Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am thrilled to be here with you guys.
Oh, even with our antics?
Even with especially with your antics.
I love you so
Laura
much.
has been as funny as she is now for as long as I've known her. Yes.
I am thankful you've
Nice.
kept me despite the antics all this time. So, Lisa and I met through a mutual friend, Melanie, who we all both adore.
Hey Mel.
Hey,
Mel
Mel.
Mel and Lisa went to high school together, and Melanie and I went to college together. So Lisa
So
came
Lisa visited Melanie at college and met Laura.
and was like,
Oh,
"That
and you
girl."
left with Laura.
And I left with Laura.
Oh.
Instant chemistry, connection, can't be broken. There's
Oh.
probably been
Big
years where we haven't connected, Laura, and as soon as we do, we pick right back up.
No, I love that. I love that about a friendship. Yeah, anything
That
about
should be a
Topsail
t-shirt.
Island
Came to
or
see Mel and left with Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Mel's pretty awesome. I don't know if that was
I'm
as long
not
as it's
saying that you guys broke up, but I'm just saying it's like, you come the 2 on the front and then the 3 on the back.
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Maybe it's a tattoo. We'll see how this goes.
That sounds aggressive, but okay.
It does, but I
Yeah,
love these
yeah.
girls. They're phenomenal. So, Lisa, can you introduce yourself to us? Just tell us how you show up in the world. Like if you had to introduce yourself to someone,
Sure.
what would you say? And that way we'll
Mhm.
we'll jump in a little bit based on your take. We'll follow you.
Well, just a quick intro for me. I am Lisa Mazzio, as just to
As Laura
tell,
has struggled to say.
as Laura struggled to say. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I have worked as a psychologist for about 15 years. I own a private practice in Norfolk, Virginia, which is an amazing adventure. I love doing clinical work. My job is my passion, and I feel like I'm one of the lucky few that gets to say that I get to wake up and never work a day in my life. So every day is an adventure in mental health and mental health care. And I think last year I surpassed 20,000 hours of actual direct care given to individuals. So I've done a
Wow.
lot of direct care, and again, I couldn't love it. Every day I love it more. So it's an incredible privilege to do my job, and I love to talk about it too because I think there's a lot of mystery surrounding mental health care, and I'm here to demystify and talk about all the things that make everyone's life better. That's my professional self. I
Wait, before you move on, do
Yeah,
you have
sure.
a demographic, like a specialty or like a particular area that you focus on or a group that you support?
Yeah, I'm a generalist, but over the years I have a couple of niches that I developed. So I I don't do therapy directly with children. I work with adults.
Uh-huh.
I work with a lot of families. I do testing and assessment.
Mhm.
Okay.
Within my clinical work, I work with a lot of families that are in high conflict situations.
Okay.
I work with women that are leaving high control environments.
Wow.
Okay.
Um, Over the years, it's kind of increased to complex acute situations. So, um, yeah, difficult divorces, complex families,
Mhm.
things like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Within my practice, there's other professionals that do play therapy, work with adolescents, and that's just so great. They're so talented, and I
Yeah.
just I love what they do. That's not what I do though. I wrangle the parents. That's what I do. I like to do
Mm,
both.
Yes.
yes, the harder and
Yes.
perhaps less cute job.
The way less.
Way less
Way
cute.
less cute. You are not
Yeah.
acting cute right now. Get yourself
No,
together.
that is way less cute.
And yeah, that's my professional work.
And
Okay,
how about
sorry.
when you go
Now,
home, put on that other hat? Tell me
I
about the
yeah.
also
rest of your
love
life.
working with like people that are, going on existential journeys, figuring out what their purpose is, getting unstuck from patterns of generational trauma and abuse. I mean, all those kinds of
Mhm.
things. So
Yep.
So real light fluffy.
the messier the better, I've decided.
Mhm.
So I
I
like the
can't
challenge.
imagine somebody better to wade through that with than you. You
I
are
really do like the challenge of it. It's never boring. Okay, so then the other side of my life, which I'm constantly balancing, is that I am married to Dan. He is a fantastic attorney and dad, and we've been married for a lot of years, maybe what 18, something around this point.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we have
Your
four
marriage as an
children.
adult.
Yep, we have four children. So I have a set of identical twins that are 15 and a half, and that's an adventure too.
I
They're
can only
That
imagine.
alone, the fact that anyone who has multiples is like, "I wanna do this again,"
Did
blows
we
my
say
mind.
yet that her husband is Dan and mine is Daniel?
Oh, no, I don't think we've made that clear, but helpful
Okay.
to know.
Mhm.
And
We
I'm
did the
Laura
Italian.
Danielle, but it's fine. We'll just mess
Oh,
everybody
right.
up.
We'll just mess everybody up. Confusing. Okay,
Hey,
so
um,
Danny.
identical
identical
twins.
girls. Yep, and then I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old as well. And the 3 top are girls, and then the little one's a boy.
Is he
So,
your little prince?
I do don't tell the others, okay? I
Yeah,
do
it's
love
not like
Well,
this is public or anything. It's fine. They'll never have a path back.
them.
I won't tell. Uh-huh.
I mean, like 9 and 7 is enough right there. That's like,
Yeah,
and then 15 too at the same time.
teenagers
That's
take a lot more bandwidth than the little kids at this stage. I
Yeah.
would say it's you don't realize it, but it's not that hard to cut food into small pieces when you have little kids. But the teenagers, they require a ton of emotional parenting.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we just started driving with them, so that's
Yeah.
how.
Oh,
Mhm.
how are you? Are you okay?
Well, I actually have retired myself already from the job.
You're like, congratulations, Dan.
Yeah,
Dan, welcome.
even
Welcome to
better.
driving school. You're the instructor.
Let
The
me catch
dad
you
does
up.
that. The dad is in charge of that, but also their grandfather picks them up every weekend and takes them driving. So,
I
Oh,
love
nice.
that.
Fun.
Military grandfather?
yes.
He's gonna get this shit straight. Don't worry, you're fine. That's very smart to
That's
outsource
so
to
great.
Yeah.
But
Peter.
also,
I
like,
love
what
that.
a wonderful, like, time of connection and bonding and just like that, and a little bit of a break for the parents. Like, you guys go enjoy grandpappy over
Yes.
there while I focus up on cutting the small food.
Yeah. Cutting food into small pieces is the main parenting role at that age, yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, that's been gr I'm really blessed to have a great relationship with my parents, and they live close by, and they're involved. People always ask me, "How do you do it all?" I don't. It's a
Right.
shared responsibility. So,
It
um,
takes a village, and thankfully yours is in town.
truly, 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 and I know that not everybody has that, and, I don't take that for granted, so yeah, so that's a little bit about me, um I have a lot of really great friends that I feel like they're the ones that keep me alive, you know, day to day, my girlfriends. So, yeah,
Where would we be?
where would we be?
God
Yes.
love female
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah,
seriously.
exactly.
I remember when I was a teenager and thinking like male friends were cool. Like women are too, girls are too much and guys are where it's more fun to hang out with them, no drama. And I'm like, who I have no interest in anyone else with a penis. Like I just want to hang out with women all the time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I love my husband, but generally when I'm with dudes, I'm not like, yeah, I crave more of this time. I love this. This is phenomenal.
The village.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's so
So yeah,
funny.
that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And Lisa her family is beautiful. Her husband is super kind and lovely. I love him too. We spent well, this is pre-kids, but I spent a summer in her town when I was in college and we rode bikes all over that sweet little area of Norfolk and
Oh yeah.
we dog sat together. Remember that big ass dog?
Oh my
The
god.
mastiff. His head was as big as my head and I was a little afraid. I was more than a little afraid.
Forgot about that.
And I'm not afraid of dogs, but this guy, when he looked at you, he was
Yeah.
Mhm.
serious. But yeah, we had lots of fun memories that summer. And going into that church together, was it Third Pres? What was the name of
Oh,
it? Something Pres. It met at your high school.
Trinity.
Trinity. Third, see three, Trinity, Triune,
Yes.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a great summer. I really loved it. So
Oh.
as we are in this moment, now let me also date this recording. We are recording on February 7th because everything happens in such a wild shitstorm. So
Yes.
if this airs and you're like, I can't believe they didn't talk about XYZ, it could be perhaps XYZ hasn't happened yet.
Right.
um, but given the pace of the craziness right now, both in our world and specifically in the leadership in our country, what is on your mind as mom of four, as woman with, a uterus and ovaries,
And 3
as
daughters.
and three daughters coming of age,
Uh-huh.
and as clinical psychologist Dr. Lisa Mazzio? Like, what is on your mind and what would you like to talk about?
Well, that's a generous offer to let me lead the way here, but what I think would be awesome for us to talk about is just sort of what I am observing happening with the large amount of people that I interact with all the time, which is very much in aligned with, pushing past polite here, which is that I guess the best way to say it is everyone's freaking out.
Freaking the fuck out.
Everyone's freaking out.
Yes.
I told somebody yesterday that I feel like I am back in COVID levels of days of stress and tension and fear, but we're not in COVID. And, working through COVID, that's a whole other separate, you know, professional experience that I
We
had.
might be in COVID, but since the CDC can't send out any
We
communications
wouldn't
and the
know.
NIH, we wouldn't know because tuberculosis is running rampant in Kansas right now, and who
It
knows
might
where
be
else
in
it is
measles and
spreading to.
polio, Corey.
And exactly, like for real,
And
maybe we are in COVID. Maybe that's
Yeah.
our bodies trying to tell us something.
maybe it knows. And USAID being canceled means Ebola is going to run out
Um,
of control in other
maybe we're in
countries.
Ebola. Um,
Maybe we're in a bowl of shit.
This
Okay,
who knows? Pick your next germ,
in
friends.
a bowl of shit.
people ask me, like, are people coming and talking about this stuff? And it's not that they are. I mean, there are people that do specifically have daily impacts about what's happening. But what it is it's this phenomenon that it's like we're in this pressure cooker. So everyone's baseline issues, which everybody has, are all escalated in this stew of fear.
Mhm.
And so everybody to feels like we're higher level of need, higher level of crisis. People aren't finding stability and peace. And I don't necessarily mean that like unstable mental health. I just mean a sense of stability,
Yes.
a sense of well-being, the way that, you know, prior to what day was inauguration?
January 20th.
Yeah. January 19th, we had a little shift. Mhm.
So, heightened baseline for people.
Yeah.
This sense of I don't know what's coming next. This like pressure
What?
cooker as you're saying and it feels like COVID times again.
Just like everything's uncertain. And that's, in a lot of my work, I work with a lot of people that are navigating power and control dynamics. And I think that's a really helpful thing for us to kind of maybe dive into a little bit today to talk about, which is that what I'm starting to realize, even personally going through that, and maybe you guys can relate to this too, is that it's really overwhelming. And then that starts to make us feel feelings.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
do you guys feel like that?
Do you see my eyes? Yes,
Mhm.
very much so. I mean, I think it's Corey, you tell me too, but like I think this is all strategy too from politicians to overwhelm, to flood the zone, right? So you can't fight because you just want to get small.
Well, that's the basic response to a threat.
Right.
Mhm,
Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Do you guys know
mhm.
what fawning is?
Yes.
Right.
But explain, feel free in case somebody doesn't.
So there's fighting, which is obviously fighting. There's flighting, which is running away, avoiding. The freezing, which is what I think the tactic is freeze to disarm. And then there's
Yes.
fawning, which is essentially aligning with the abuser so that the abuser stops abusing you.
Mm,
And I do think a lot of that's going on too. So in the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, this is, the Ezra Klein podcast we were talking about, Laura,
mhm.
the don't believe him. I think that's a really helpful switch this week for everybody, which is
Yes.
the tactic of being overwhelmed is how they gain more control.
Right.
Mhm.
So what are we supposed to do about that? Right. And that's what I think we could talk about some practical pieces of that too. But it's on purpose. That's the part
Yeah,
that's it's a
100%.
real it's a real, mind F, right? It's on purpose.
Mm,
Yeah, and it was a long con, a long game strategy, right? Like, the idea was, we are going to tell all the different groups that whatever they need to hear to get on our side and get over here because we need to use this pathway to ultimately achieve the takeover. We tried to do it the rough way. We tried an insurrection. We tried to just discredit the process before. That didn't work. So we need to use the process to then access the space to
Uh-huh.
then blitz the
mhm.
population, right? And so that's what they did.
When you put people in when you overwhelm people, they become complacent, hopeless, and compliant.
And people were already occupying that space in so many ways, right? Like, people were already feeling like we have to work so much just to make our basic ends meet. There are so many people who are working multiple jobs. We all work, you described it. We all work in two income households,
Yes.
right? And so the idea that we all have to be working in order to support our lifestyles, our livelihoods, our expectations, afford our homes and buy groceries and all of that kind of stuff. And then you put hundreds of thousands of people on notice that they may not have any livelihood as of yesterday. They could choose to opt out. But what does that mean for them? What is the future for them and their families and all, like, that's creating that chaos. You start literally picking people up, showing up to schools, showing up to churches, showing up to houses,
Hospitals.
showing up to hospitals, showing up to neighborhoods, showing up to check-ins for people who are on the in the pathway to citizenship, showing up to their check-in points and
And it
picking people
messages
up.
the rest of us, nowhere is safe. You are not
Mhm.
Exactly. Anywhere.
You
Exactly.
cannot be safe no matter where you go. And
Yes.
even for people who have the privilege of not being the targets of that, when we hear and experience the message that nowhere is safe and there's nothing you can do about it, that is really heavy. It is very difficult to carry that around. A lot of people that I talk to all the time say, well, what can I possibly do? I can't do anything. And I think that there's a piece of that that is authentic in that, we're not all federal judges and we're not directly interfering, but I think there are things that we can do. I think
Mm.
that it starts by saying we are not going to believe him. We're going to start to realize that the lies are part of the tactic. And we're going to start to protect our energy so that we can keep on actually reacting and not just get into a freeze mode.
Mhm. Yes.
I would wanna take a step far back and be like, "Why did I believe him to begin with?" I want people to do some of that investigating. It's like, why was I willing to accept the harm to other people in the ability to protect myself? And that could be part of the fawning but it's like, why was I willing to engage with that? Why was I willing to support that? Because some of the people who you see having the most visceral and hard reactions are people who actually loudly supported him and voted for him, right? And so I would also want people to think about what was their motivation to do that? And then what is their motivation to stop listening and to try to do something differently, right? Is it still about self preservation? Because if it's only about protecting yourself, then we're going to keep finding ourselves in these kinds of patterns, right? If you not listening and shifting is only about you.
You and your safety versus broader humanity. Yeah, I think to your point, like a lot of people are experiencing this fear, this sense of nowhere is safe in America for the first time. We talked about this in our last pod a little bit about how I think particularly white people are freaking out because this is new to us. The experience of so many other marginalized communities is there have been laws on the books against me. There have been, even if there wasn't, I got called all kinds of crazy things in public all the time, or I've had these experiences. It's new for us, which is what makes it so jarring, I think, for maybe some of your clients. But it does, I think Corey's point is right too. Like we have to, if we're only worried about us getting through this crisis, we've learned nothing. We've learned nothing. So if we only are in it for our own individual survival, us four no more mentality, then we haven't learned.
And that's actually what I am, you know, I'm like a hopeful skepticist because I'm like, come on, white people,
Catch up. Come on.
not just catch up, but be willing.
Mm.
Like, be willing to do that hard work of looking here, of self-reflecting, of unpacking why you were willing to find us in this space in the first place. Be willing to do some of that work and not just how are we gonna get out of it, because those 2 things are connected.
And maybe it isn't so much that they voted for, it's that they didn't have hard conversations with that racist uncle or with that parent or neighbor or
Or they
whatever.
didn't vote, any of the things. They were just gonna ride it out. There's so many layers to the like, how he got in there, but I'm just saying, this is jarring, but why is it jarring? 'Cause it's been happening to a lot of people for a long time and you've been aware of it. So, like, why is it jarring? And then who are you focusing on when we're talking about changing what's happening? Are you still only centered on you? Or are you thinking about the community at large so that these kinds of things won't be happening again?
And
Right?
again
It's
and
like
again.
we talk about the Constitution, and the Constitution was racist because the people who were writing the Constitution also were slaveholders, right? They owned people. So when we're thinking about disruption and dismantling, it's like we have to be thinking about it in a way that is not recentering you and your big feelings because other people have literally been persevering through this for centuries here.
I like to think of this as a growth opportunity for individuals that really only have been centered about, thinking about self-centered, um, you know, issues.
Perspectives, yeah.
And uh,
Mhm.
I was thinking when you were talking before that the best way to tell a lie is to start with a partial piece of truth. And so I do think that maybe when we think about why were people unwilling to be open to what was actually truly happening is because there's pieces that when there are people that are in positions of power that intend to abuse using other people, they know how to actually appeal to things that are true enough
Mhm.
to get you to look away from the
Mhm.
collective and to focus on these micro topics, right?
Yeah.
And the definition of abuse is a misuse of power.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we have to think about how are we contributing to that when we are also aligning and without the intention of harm. But that is not relevant when we talk about intention versus impact.
Right.
So what have you learned from, well, probably your training too, but also in working with people who are in situations? And please feel free if anything gets too touchy or too sensitive, tell me and we'll pivot. But this idea of what have you learned about high control situations, the tactics, what to look for? Well, and again, we're seeing it in large scale right now, but also like how to take your power back from that. So you don't have to freeze, fawn, flight, flee, or what was the other one? It's like, oh, I was gonna say another F word, that's not right.
Fight,
Fight,
flight,
flight,
Right.
freeze,
freeze,
fawn.
fawn. Thank you for going nice and slow with
Words
me.
are hard
Words are
today.
hard.
Even the
Lisa
words you
Mazzio, I
know.
can say it. Yeah, what have you learned in terms of both the abuser type behaviors,
Yeah.
the people that are drawn to this, and how we can reclaim power?
I think and I think this is what the collective feel is. It feels like, am I in crazy town, right? Is that's when we start doubting ourselves and feeling the confusion and the chaos is a real warning sign. So
Mhm.
and I do think that's what's happening with the media currently as well. And so when we look at this bombardment tactic and there's it just goes from one thing to the next. That is that's the attempt to disarm by being overwhelmed. And so something about high control environments is that they don't let you think your own thoughts. They say what to think about. And if you step back and look at what's happening is that that entire group of power abusing people are not letting us even have enough time to think our own thoughts before we have to think about something else, the thing that they're wanting us to think about.
Mhm,
So freedom of thought is a really important aspect of high control environment. So what do we do is that we don't participate.
mhm.
Mm.
Slippery slope though, right, girls? Because how are
Mhm.
we supposed to not participate but also still participate?
Yeah, we don't want to yeah, I the idea of, the Germans just let I shouldn't say all generalize, but like the German people were overwhelmed and just let the Holocaust happen, right? So how can we be active and be guarding against that? What is the right balance between engagement and protecting peace?
One of the things is like stop looking to other people for the answers. Like the leaders, the people who are in these positions of power are not going to save you. They created this for you. Like separate that. Like there has been a really great conditioning and acculturation that we are supposed to look to them for the solution. And we have this way we vote people in who are supposed to be representing our interests and blah 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 bullshit. Like, that's not the reality. So kind of like create some of that separation around believing that there is a hero somewhere else. You are the hero.
Mhm.
There isn't somebody who is gonna come save you. We have to be the hero, and we have to connect with other heroes. Like, we
So
have
what
to
would you
form
Corey, what would you say to people that are like, "Okay, I wanna do it. What do I do?
it's like, "Well, I wanna do what? What's the what? What is the what you wanna do?"
I wanna be part of the progress. What do I do?"
Alright, well, what are you good at? Can you make phone calls?
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
Are you comfortable calling people and leaving message? Are you good at writing? Are you good at creating graphics? Like, let's get a message together. Let's come together, get a message together, and then everyone has a responsibility and it stays within their lane, but we're moving toward a shared purpose. We're moving toward a shared vision. So it's like you don't have to do all of the things. But if you are in a coalition, if you are in a community, it's like lean on the people who have different strengths and allow those people to exercise those things in that space so that it doesn't and share it. Talk about the pieces that feel heavy and overwhelming with other people. So then you don't feel like you're isolated, which is another tactic. You feeling by yourself makes it feel more overwhelming. So if you can be in community with people who are able to share that they're also experiencing this level of fear and chaos and uncertainty and that you all can together identify ways that as a community you can move in a different direction, then it feels less burdensome.
Something that I saw somewhere that was really helpful was that when it does feel like an overwhelming burden, in your circle, divide up the things to care about.
Yes.
So if I wanna care about, if I care about, um,
Elon
embra
Musk's takeover and
yeah,
taking our Social
you
Security
can care
numbers and
you
bank accounts.
right, we
You
can
fight
Keep
that.
us
worry
all
about the
posted.
What'd you
That's
say?
true, really.
Corey, what'd you say?
I said, keep us all posted.
Yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
all
you're
don't need to be following that. That's you. You're following that part.
And that helps with the fatigue because I think
Mhm.
what I would love these listeners to take away from is that you cannot give up and get complacent here. We are not gonna believe his lies. We are not gonna be forced into a freeze position where we just say, "Well, I guess it is what it is." That is when they actually achieve the abuse of power that they are seeking. Okay,
because you
so I
believed them.
And stop thinking the media is news, that it's actually information,
They
good
trade in
information.
attention.
Yeah, it is like that is not they're talking about he's stretching his power within the Constitution. And it's like, no, he is not doing that. He is doing something much more aggressive, which is really what the Constitution was designed to prevent from happening. And so, like, that's reinforcing those narratives, that mindset, that the lie. Sorry, Lisa.
so I have this book. It's called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Have you guys ever heard of this book? This is like
Mm-mm.
banned in prisons and things like that. It's essentially it's essentially like 48 chapters on how to take over the world. It's this
Ooh, I'm glad
wild
you
book.
have that. Can you
Yeah.
make sure we lock that down?
It's a really fascinating book and it talks about power techniques.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
so I actually was looking at it to prepare for today. And can I read you a sentence from it? Because I think it's
Please.
really helpful. This is Law 17, which is called Keep Others in Suspended Terror. Humans are creatures of habit with an insatiable need to see familiarity. Your predictability gives them a sense of control. Turn the tables. Be deliberately unpredictable. Behavior that has no consistency will keep them off balance, and they will wear themselves out trying to explain your moves. Taken to an extreme, this strategy will intimidate and terrorize people. And again, it's a really diabolical book, but it's important as a person who studies power and control to understand how people use power and control, misuse power and control. And I just was horrified when I was just thumbing through this book to look at this because there it is, right? And I want all of us to say, no, we're not going to be terrorized. We're not going to lay down and say we are too tired. We're not just going to be in shock and awe and say, oh no, we can't do it. We're going to work together, divide up how we're going to care about these things because you can't care about everything and press on.
Yes.
That's how you take your power back. You don't
Yeah.
live in shock and awe. You say, okay, yeah, I expect that. Your behavior tells me that you're going to keep doing that, but I am not going to give up.
And that might be in groups that you already meet with, right? If you already have a book club, if you already have a group of friends, your female circle, your women that you come to. That may be where that gets divided. The other thing to think about, especially for people who maybe don't have that circle or don't have like-minded friends at this point in time, I don't want you to think that all is lost for you. Something that I think is really important is not recreating the wheel on trying to solve this on your own and figure out how to tackle it. Plug into organizations that are already fighting whatever it is that you care about, right? So is it the ACLU? Is it the Trevor Project? Is it about a transgender focused group? Is it, what is the it? And use that. This is kind of a silly example, but I feel like, and again, very, very well-meaning people. I know a bunch of people who are like, I want to start an animal rescue. I'm like, y'all, you already have them. Why would you go through all the legal paperwork to set up your 501(c)(3), all this stuff? Just find a group that's already doing it. And I think that applies here too. How can
But
I,
this
with
also
my,
goes back to the motivation. Like, why do you need to start it?
Mhm.
Why do you need to start it? These things exist. What is the motivation? Who are you trying to save, or who are you trying to demonstrate that you're saving?
Or is it the individuality in Americans that says, I need to do it differently? I don't like the way they do this. This part makes me mad. I'm doing it my way. Well,
All of
guess
that.
what? It's time for the collective. It is not time to further, words are so hard, further individuate.
Mhm.
It is time for us to say, we find common ground here. Let's connect and let's use our
Yeah.
power collectively.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you have an animal rescue. I'm like 40 miles out from where you are. Do you think we could have a satellite location? You already
Bingo.
have the rescue. We can set up a schedule where I bring, if you have the space, we bring the animals from our area to your area because we don't have a rescue. If at some point, it's like this is,
The other thing I like to say is just say, "What can I do?
Mhm.
What do you need? How can I help?"
yeah,
Yes.
And
yeah,
Because
join the team.
Because
Join.
yeah, because the other piece
yeah.
of this is I don't know very many people that have unlimited bandwidth to do the thing and save the world and show up as the hero, right? Most of
No
us,
one does.
all three of us on this call, right? Dually, like both of us work, all of us working, multiple children, some of them driving, some of them needing some serious emotional guidance, some of them needing their food cut up, right? We got the whole gamut.
Into small pieces.
And into small, non-chokeable pieces, and we put them
Right.
in their car
Play
seats, and all
grapes,
5.
girls.
Yes, yeah, cut those grapes, cut those hot dogs too, you know? Like, we don't have unlimited bandwidth to save the world, and so don't get stuck in what you can't take on your own. Find people who are also like-minded
Mhm.
to tackle that together, or
And
to
that's not as hard as it sounds
I
these days.
know.
Like,
Not.
it's not as hard as it sounds. Like social media makes it easier. There are groups. I mean, I don't know if you want to be in there in the meta world, but it's
That's a whole
still a
nother
way, a
debate
whole
for
nother
me.
debate, right? But there's still
Yeah,
like a way to connect. It's still a way to connect and find people. Um, there are community centers. Like in your community, there are centers that are called community centers that can serve as the center for the community, the place where people come
What is it again,
together.
Courtney? What's it
A
called again?
community
I can't remember, it's a center
center,
for a community, so it's a
right? It's like places like libraries can be meeting places and connection places where it's like, I want to make sure that people are able to have access to the books and the literature and the complete history of our country and not just some perspective that is one sided. There are so many places. If you don't like to do the digital stuff, there are places in real life that
Mhm.
you can show up to
In the
and
center
they
of communities.
in the center of communities.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great point. I think about now again, I've developed my social feeds over time that I am getting the kind of inputs that I am looking for in terms of making a difference. But like just at a glance, there's campaigns where I can post and share. There are places and apps I can download to make calls. There, is a food pantry in my community where I can donate and go and share. I can work at the clothes closet and sort clothes for that'll be purchased for and all the proceeds go to their programming, all of that those things, right? So take a survey, if you will. First of all, I think really trust yourself. What is it that moves you, right? With all of the overwhelm, with all of the scatter shot that's been sent into our lives, what is the thing that pricks your heart? What is that thing? Because maybe the Elon Musk Social Security thing isn't like you're like, "Yeah, that sounds really scary and weird," but, like, I don't get excited about that. But if it's the thought of immigrant families or ICE coming to a school and ripping a child away from a teacher, then guess what? That's what you focus on. I think those things are given to us from higher power. I think that is such an important intuition to follow. And then so start there.
And I want you to notice, if you're listening, what are you the most angry about? That's
Right.
gonna give you a good clue as to what you care about, because the flip side of anger is strength. But my second charge to you is to stop being angry and to start doing something and committing to not giving up or losing hope or just laying down and being complacent. So we're going to not waste time on being angry. We're going to notice what our anger is telling us. That's the thing we care about. We're going to channel it for strength, and then we're going to move it towards action within our community.
Yeah. I'll say too, obviously election day didn't go the way that I wished it had, but I had a lot of anxiety around election day until I went and worked the polls. When I worked the polls and I worked the Democratic committee table, and again, not because the Democrats are going to save us, but because that's how I was voting this last election. It was so amazing to meet this person of color, this gay woman, this young child, or this, grandson who's with them, this teenage girl who's really motivated. That table alone gave me community for that day that helped to bolster my spirit for that day. And I think that like being able to make connections with people in physical places that care about what you care about is something that our digital world can't give us in the same way. And
Hmm.
I think we should lean into that
And it,
too.
it took you out of your anxiety,
It
out
did.
of yourself. You're self-centered. You're just seeing yourself, which that's what happens to all of us. It's normal. Took it out of that and showed you, hey, look at this broad perspective.
Yeah. It moved me from fear to action too. And I think that's really, really important.
Let's move from fear to action.
Let's move from fear to action. That goes on the shirt, right? With the I came here for Mel and I left with Laura. So, how do you talk about this? And again, I know you mentioned that working with children in therapy is not your focus right now, but you're also a mom,
I am.
right? And I don't know about you, but like this past week, I helped my child study for the three branches of government test. That was hard. What the
Yeah.
executive branch can and can't do, legislative branch can and can't do. Like, anyway, that's a little
Well,
anecdote. But
but I actually think that's a strategy, Laura. That is a full strategy. Educating our children on how things are and should be, right? History, past, present, intentions, like giving full pictures. That education is a very important strategy because then it helps them to be independent thinkers, as Lisa was saying before. And they can ask questions and they are curious. And when they're noticing things that don't align with what they've been taught,
mm,
then they want to say something or push back. That is a very powerful strategy. Knowledge is power.
okay, I'm going to call the kid back. We're going to talk a little more in depth. I kind of said, I was like, in theory, this is what it's supposed to be, but it's not like that right now, my
Yeah.
love.
I think the basics, we want to be the opposite of a high control environment, which is that we allow for free thinking.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I always tell my kids is, hey, this is what I think and this is why, but you get to make your own choice. I make sure I practice all the time. You get to make your own choice in here. Look at the information. I push them towards critical thinking, and also know that in the developing brain, they don't have they have a lot of years of building here. So I'm not anxious about that per se, and I also think that our actions speak a lot louder than our words anyway. But there are kids that are really anxious about this, and my kids go to a private Christian school. And this has been a challenge for us because there's a lot of people that think differently than we do in that environment. And so my kids have specifically been experiencing, by their report, feeling like they're the minority of understanding world events. And so we have worked with them on what I call show your work. So have an opinion and be able to explain why, and you can allow for your friends to have different opinions. But when hear my 9-year-old come home and say to me when she gets in the car and I say, how was school? And she says, at recess today, someone said to me, why does Kamala Harris kill babies? Yeah, it's tough. It's a really tough situation. It's a true story.
Mm.
So I think that our children watch what we do and they watch what we say. And our children hear when we have news on in the background. And, you know, I am committed to free thought. which means there are many ways to have opinions and many angles that people have the freedom to believe in. I don't have to agree with you.
Mhm.
I had to developmentally, in a developmentally appropriate way, explain that that's not what's happening. That is
Mhm.
not the truth. And that there's an issue called abortion, and it's about whether people have the right to make a choice or not for themselves. And I don't think she totally understood, but
Mhm.
I just leveled with her about it in a way that I'm attempting to provide context for her. And if you look at the outcome of our election, 50% of people hold beliefs that are different than 50% of other people's beliefs,
Mhm.
no matter how you slice it, right? And so, again, we don't have to be scared of that. And people that have different beliefs are not bad people. But I do think that it is our responsibility within our own homes to help our kids to understand what they might be hearing around them, how they could talk to their friends about it, what's developmentally appropriate, what do we not have to talk about with our children, and how to be good stewards of information. So, with our older kids, we talk a lot about sources. Now, I do have to say that my genius husband, who is a constitutional nerd, that's a real help, right? So he
Right,
handles a
right,
lot.
right.
He handles a lot of the hard information. Where I'm gonna lean towards the feelings doctor part, but he's gonna
You
lean
2 are
towards
very well matched. Is there
yeah.
a Dan Mazzio hotline
It's
the rest of us parents can access if we need that?
Right.
Dang.
yeah,
It's like
no, truly,
different kinds
like
of handy, right?
Mhm.
yes,
Dan
Yeah,
is
your
Dan.
yes, your Daniel's got the house figured out. He's gonna put this room in, change that around. You want a cabinet there? No problem.
that's
This
amazing.
one's
I'm
I know.
jealous.
Me
But
too.
it's a different kind of handy,
It
It
right?
sure
is.
Like the handy that you have is like he's a Constitution nerd. So he is like, I'm pulling out all these. I have this first edition, and
I
this
got
is what the
Article
words
3.
actually said.
no, I just ask him a question and he Googles. He gives me the answer right away. I'm like he's like my personal Google search, my search bar.
You know what?
He's
Thank
amazing.
God when you pay if you have to pay those student loan payments, you go, "This was worth it this month." I got my Google my Google
I
answer.
got it. Yep.
Um, well, anyway, back to the kid question. I mean, I would love to hear what you guys think, just from being moms too. But I would say we're threading the needle between tell them the truth, give them the space to think on their own, and be developmentally appropriate with it.
Corey, you wanna hit that first? Yours are
No, I
little.
mean my kids are my son just turned 5, my oldest one, and my little one's 3. So, we are also at a we're at a colloquial school or an Episcopal school, but it is predominantly Black, and it is so diversity, equity, and inclusion are things that are highly prioritized, and, like, that kind of stuff is not quite in their level of conversation yet, right? Like, they're more talking about Sonic 3 and who's gonna be in Sonic 4 and the relationship between, Sonic and Silver Sonic and,
Oh,
like,
being young and innocent, yeah.
that dynamic and, talking about next birthday, I want a red Hulk to go with my Captain America toy, like, that's a little bit more where we are, imagining creating food, different styles of food, going to auntie and uncle's house because that's where all the pizza is. That's the fake
That's where
pizzas
you're
over
living
there.
right now.
Yeah, that's more where I'm living in terms of my conversations with them.
I also think it's
Yeah.
to your point, when you have kids that are that young, it's okay to not talk about it.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
right.
Preserve their childhood. Like they'll
Yes.
be a voting age eventually, and we'll talk about the issues then when they get there. But
Yes.
you
Mhm.
don't have to talk with your kids to your kids about this if they're little.
Right.
Yes, yes. I will say my husband is a very much a news junkie. It's never on our TV, but he's always reading it on his phone, and you'll hear him just drop an F-bomb, like, reading a news story, and the kids are like, "What's wrong, dad? What's wrong, dad? Dad, are you okay? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "You're gonna have to hold that F-bomb inside a little longer because it unnerves them, especially because we kind of live here as a couple where there's not a lot of fighting, there's not a lot of conflict, so when you hear dad curse, you're real curious. What just happened? So that is something we need to work on in terms of how the level of their baseline, to your point, about how how this feels, this pressure cooker feels to them as kids of two parents who care.
Mm.
But
That's
I will
perfect. That's what we need to say, kids of 2 parents that care.
kids of two
Yes.
parents that care. I maybe I should give them a t-shirt too.
Yeah.
They are good kids and they do care too. They're starting to care on their own, which is encouraging.
Mm.
The other piece of this too is developmentally in terms of their brains, they're very black and white thinkers. They're very, a dichotomy, a yes, no, good, bad, good, evil. And so,
Good guy, bad guy.
yes, um,
Those are the conversations we're having
yes, you
about
are
the
about Marvel
gray.
characters, right?
But about the gray, that
Yeah.
everyone isn't necessarily a bad person, and I
Yes.
point out things like, "That was a bad behavior, and did you see how the other people responded to that?" And then they
Mhm.
began to feel that more, and then they decided that that's who they wanted to be because that's what people were expecting. Like, we watched Wicked, and that was kind of illuminating for my older son, right? This idea is like, "But mommy, she wasn't
She wasn't
bad or
bad.
mean." And I was like, "Yes, that's how it happens." And he asked questions about monsters, and I said, "Monsters, how you imagine them don't exist, but there are people who do monstrous things
Or we treat other people as monsters because they're other.
because they're other." But it's like the monsters that like how the president in, Harry what is his name? What is his name?
What movie? What give me a
In
reference.
Captain America Coming Up.
Oh, you know I got
It
nothing on this.
it's Harrison Ford is the president in Captain America coming
Okay.
the one that's gonna come out, and he ends up becoming the Red Hulk.
Okay.
It's like, that's not how the monster actually shows up in these people. Like, that is an imaginative representation of a person demonstrating monster-like behavior, him turning into the Red Hulk. But in real life, those same kind of people demonstrate those behaviors without becoming the Red Hulk, that, like, visual version of the monster. They just
Okay.
look like the guy in the suit.
Or they're yeah, I was gonna make a joke about, Mango Mussolini. They look like this. No, we won't I don't wanna dehumanize him either.
Anyway,
Those
sorry, go ahead.
no, but those that's the challenge is like, "Oh, this kid says go Trump," or, like, laughed about Kamala losing on the playground,
And
and
hooked.
so, like, he's bad, and it's or his family is bad, or whatever the it is, and so we live in an area, Lisa, you're saying your kids go to school in a pretty conservative spot,
Mhm.
right? Corey, yours on the other end of the spectrum, maybe not so much. I'm the in between. We live in a rural area that is moving. It's magenta. It's not red anymore. It's
Yeah.
getting magenta. And that's exciting. But we are neighbors with these folks and you know, go to kid activities and cheer next to each other on the sidelines at soccer. And so I won't let my kids vilify and
Agree.
dehumanize,
Yep.
anyone who thinks differently, but we do have a lot of conversations about the abortion one has come up in our house too, not because they heard anything so scary, that's
Yes.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
let's talk about what would happen if, and would you want how would you feel if someone told you you had to do something with your body that would change your life forever? Those kinda things.
And also talking to them about, like, how just like how we talk, other families are talking in their homes too, and
Yes.
their beliefs and experiences aren't quite the same as ours, and so the things that they're talking about may not be exactly how we're talking about these same things, and so that doesn't make them bad people, that just so we have to acknowledge that this is this is our home, and the conversations that we have are based on mommy's experiences and papa's experiences and what we think is right because we love you. But if someone's having a different conversation, that doesn't mean that their parents don't love them. That doesn't mean that they're bad people. That means that they just have a different way of thinking. The best way to learn more about that is to ask questions and stay curious.
Mhm. And while, it's not uncommon for kids to think like their parents at these ages, I love what you said, Lisa, about prioritizing freedom of thought. Like
Yeah.
I tell my kids that all the time, like things like that all the time. Hudson and I had a really cool conversation about religion the other day that I did not see coming. And, he said one thing and I kind of prompted and said, well, could it be this? And I said, it was like, if you're ever interested in going to a service, finding out, reading a book, comparative religions, having these conversations, I am always open to that. Even though I may have a particular stance or take. And I
Yeah.
don't know that that same freedom of thought is happening in it with some of these ideas that are based
A
on
high
control
control
and
environment
yep,
where we prioritize fear and
othering and all of that. Yeah.
yes.
So Corey, like, I think I loved your framing for like some families are having conversations about this. They're also maybe not having conversations as much as a come to Jesus or you live in fear in this house. So I my hope is that by having that openness and that sense of you can explore and get curious, that my kids will hopefully not stray too far from this
I do
thinking.
think that the values of parenting in our generation of parenting, there is a real encouraging shift towards openness
Mhm.
and tolerance of independent thinking. I'm just so curious, God willing, we're going to live to see what the cultural landscape shifts to be when we see people from older generations who have traditionally less of that flexible thinking. And when we have kids, how many kids are there between us? I have four.
2, 4, 6, and my 9.
The Our collective 9 kids go into the world with the ability to think critically. I hope that
Mhm.
that is an exponential, movement of our parenting generation, and that makes me feel a lot of hope, to be real honest.
Can I be really honest?
Yeah.
Our track record does not indicate that that's what's gonna happen, unfortunately.
Say
It's
more.
like, so, the latchkey kids of Generation X, like, we're elder millennials, so we were kind of on the tail of that, right? They were also connecting and vibing across identities through music, through arts, through all of these different things. There was all kinds of interracial booms and growths and like storytelling and all that in this era. And then those people became the people in the positions of power, and they're demonstrating the same white supreme behaviors and mentalities that they were pushing up against in their youth.
In their youth.
And
Yeah.
so, like, I am hopeful in the way, like, yes, because we are in these spaces of where we're trying to encourage and support free thought for 100%, and I hope that it manifests into something that extends outside of our reach and purview, and that we as the people we are now have made enough impact in the systems that are in place that they don't get reacculturated once they're in whatever settings into that mindset of supremacy, right? Because we see things like as kids are young, we see them interacting in more diverse groups, participating in settings that have more diversity in their friend groups and in their team groups and their robotics groups, whatever they
Where they
are,
may not notice difference either,
where
or they embrace it.
yes, and as they get older, their groups racially become more homogeneous. And that homogeneity is part of what limits that free thought, because then you begin to interact more and more around people who are in bubbles that are close to you. So you can't see the bubble. You can't name the bubble because the people who have to infiltrate the bubble aren't there to be like, "Hey, yeah, you're really protected as a white woman in in this society because we're not there." And that's the part that to me is the thing that really needs to take the shift. It's we have to be willing to press to create the room for them to be themselves when they are at our age. And the parents of our parents, they pressed in some ways, right? They were out there marching, they were boycotting, they were doing sit ins and all of that kind of stuff. They were getting assassinated, literally, children, all of that. And their white counterparts found ways, even those who may have had tender hearts and affinity to support. It's like the majority of people are attracted to power. The status quo is easy. The status quo is good. The status quo is hard to push back against. So I appreciate the hope, and then in other ways, I'm just kind of like a realist because 'cause I've seen these patterns. We get these pushes, and then we see it just turn back into the same kind of environment, and on one hand, I when I'm watching what's happening, I'm thinking, wow, they are doing exactly what they said that they were going to do. And part of my resistance is like, why don't we allow them to tear it all the fuck down so we can build what it is that we actually need and want,
Mm,
right? Like I am not in the mindset that I want to spend a lot of energy fighting for this system that never fought for me,
mm,
right? It's like I haven't felt safe in the United States in a decade.
mm,
And so now other people are beginning to feel the same feelings that I've been feeling for most of my adult life,
Mhm. Yeah.
you
I
know?
think it's really important that as white people, we do acknowledge that it's it's uncomfortable to say that, but I think we model that even starting here that
mhm,
I have so much privilege, as a white woman with plenty of resources, with education. I'm not used to feeling afraid,
mhm,
but I do now. And Corey, I'm sad that you've had to feel like that for a long time.
mm.
Anyone I care about, I mean, truly, and it's
Yeah.
not thoughts and prayers. True, I don't mean that. It's not thoughts and prayers.
Which is another thing, again, it's like the tear down that mentality, right? Like, we don't need thoughts and prayers. We need action. We need movement. We
Yes.
need,
Mhm,
collaboration. We need accomplices. It's like, we need people who are willing to put themselves on the line as much as we have put ourselves on the line. That's what we need,
mm.
right? It's like, this, I hope, is a wake-up call
I
that is
read somewhere
strong
that
enough.
that's the hope in here.
Mhm,
That
yes.
let's be so outraged that it is actually let's get our collective black trash bags out here and put away the garbage, right? Of what we don't want anymore.
That's right. Well, and so it's that tension of we're raising kids differently. We're trying to be intentional and create the humans and encourage and foster the scenario and the humans that we want them to be. And these systems are really powerful and status quo is really powerful. And so
And then
maybe
broken.
this yeah, and broken. And so maybe this moment radicalizes in a really positive direction. I mean, that's the hope, right? That the people wake up, they open their eyes, they turn on past patterns of belief. They realize in new ways what being targeted or marginalized or being scared feels like.
We can't freeze.
Mhm,
Just
that's
we're
right.
No, we can't
we started
freeze.
that conversation. We started the conversation by saying, "Don't believe the lies. Don't give up."
Right.
If we wanna do Laura, what you just stated beautifully, if we want that to happen, we can't get hopeless. We can't get
Mhm,
complacent.
And we have to remember it's all connected, right? It's like the power that is held in this country is shared across lots of other places and is wielded all over the world, right? If we were so humane, then why do we have military outposts all over the world? Right? Why is our why do we have weapons places located all over the world? Why are we willing to supply arms for genocidal behavior in Congo and other places? Why? Because the power. This place here, these United States, we don't have that many resources. We rely on other places to be able to do our daily living, right? The eating that we do, the use of our cell phone, electric cars, some of the oil and gasoline, like we rely on other places to do that. And some of those places we rely on them through extortion and oppression. And some of those places we rely on through their extortion and oppression of other
mhm,
places, but like in partnership, right? And so this notion of tariffs and deportation and um silencing information is going to be catastrophic to everybody's everyday experience because we rely on immigrants to provide us with the food that we eat on our table. Like 90% of our produce, we rely on immigrants to pick that food, right? We rely on the Middle East for oil and things. That's where our gas is coming from. We rely on on Africa for minerals and for precious metals that we use in our technology. We rely on China for technology. We rely on we rely on everybody for things. So the what is it? Fun ant. What was it? The
Oh, oh,
FAF
FAFO, flick
FAFO.
around, find out. What did Bernie call it? My
But
husband
it's like
listened to the podcast and came up with an acronym that worked for us. I'll find it. Go
so
ahead.
so this idea around not freezing, it also is reliant on us mobilizing across oppression generally, right? Not my individual experience of this fear right now in this moment, this oppressive feeling in this moment, but like the resistance to that being a perpetual thing that anybody experiences, because we're seeing these levels of pushback, these shifts in like tyrannical rule in more than one place, and we're seeing pushback in all of these places. And so, if we can talk about how what's happening in the United States impacts not only the United States, but people in other parts of the world. If we talk about what's happening in Ukraine impacts not only people in Ukraine, but people in other parts of the world. If we talk about sending people back to um, Colombia or Mexico or wherever impacts those people, but not only those people, it impacts what's happening here. It's like we have even more collective power if we're thinking about the reach that we actually have in terms of fighting against systems of oppression. We have immense collective power, and we have even more places to plug in because the thing that's making us mad may not even be something that's making us mad here in this country.
Mm. Fun auntie for opposition.
Fun
That's what
auntie
Bernie
for
came up with.
opposition.
So we're gonna embrace that.
FAFO. They
Yes, we're
used to be
gonna
like fuck around and find out, right?
fun
We're trying
aunties
fun aunties for
fighting
opposition.
oppression. I
There
like
you
fighting
go.
oppression
Fighting
too.
oppression, fun aunties fighting oppression.
Bernie got us
Boom.
there. Bernie's
Thanks,
got us
Bert.
80% of the way
Thank you,
there. We
Bernie.
just had a see, put a
Thanks,
bow on that
Bernie.
thing. Um, this has been lovely, and I love that we are focusing on what we can do, and we are going to make a commitment, all of us, not to get small and not to believe him, because
Yes.
our power is in moving forward, moving towards action, and
Together.
together. That's
Whether
the
it's
big part.
talking to your kids in the back of your car and pickup line
Yeah.
or engaging in a community or talking about global interests, there's so many options here.
So many options here. There's so many ways.
It's not
You
hopeless.
are the perpetual caller, letter writer, you're the animal wrangler. Like there are so many ways that we
To
can
be a fun
focus
auntie that fights oppression.
that
Yes.
fights
What
oppression.
is speaking to your heart? Who are other people who are already doing it? Find your people, take your slice of the pie and work on that, you
Don't
know?
waste your time being angry.
Channel it, baby.
One last thing. Share your shock and family time, white folks. Okay. Don't bring that shit over here.
You're like, I
Okay.
know, I know.
Like my sister and I had a 2-hour conversation just talking about the shock that we experience with people's shock.
Shock about shock, yeah.
Shock about shock. It's like,
Have y'all not been
oh,
paying attention?
have have you not been here? So what I'm saying is share that shock in family time. You guys work on that because we've been saying it
And living it.
and living it
And feeling it and carrying it.
for a long time.
Long time.
Okay. Keep
Mhm.
your shock over there and show up with an action plan or
Mhm,
something. Whatever your
mhm.
steps are, show up
Put your
with your
gloves on, get
actions.
the shovel,
Right.
whatever
It's
you're
like
gonna
I
do.
can't support your moment of despair. Okay. I don't have the
That's
bandwidth for
emotional
that.
labor you don't need to give.
I just don't need,
Absolutely. You don't.
yeah.
Yes.
So keep it in family time.
That white community, y'all do that over there.
That's family time.
I love it. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes,
Thanks for
Lisa. This
having
was
me. What you
fun.
guys are a delight.
Oh, thanks. We love
I'd love
being
to come
together.
back and keep talking about all things related to feelings. So
We'll have plenty of opportunities, let me tell you. The
Yeah,
feelings are big, the feelings are plentiful. I'm talking about them in my spaces.
that's
And
great.
I love the idea of moving to something that's practical, right? The what can we do? The so what now? So
yeah.
thank you. Where can people find you? Is there any way that people can find you and connect with you if they're in Virginia and want to access
Oh, sure.
services?
Yeah, my practice is named Watermark Psychological Services. You can hit the old internet and find me
We'll
there.
put it in the show notes.
Ye old internet. Well, yep, we will. We'll hook it up. We don't even need a Dan constitutional scholar. I'll put that in the show notes for sure.
Boom.
Boom. Love you,
You'll be
Dan.
thrilled.
Love you, Dan. Love you, Daniel. Love you all. Corey, thanks as always. It's been fun. Thanks everybody for listening to Pushing Past Polite, where we talk about what matter and make the world what matters. Close
Thanks,
us out.
everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. It was such a delight having you today. It was fun, and we got to talk about some really important issues. Thank you all for listening to Pushing Past Polite, where we talk about what matters and make the world more just. I'm Corey.
I'm Laura.
I'm Dr. Mazzio.
Don't get small. Take action.
Thanks for listening to Pushing Past Polite. We encourage you to go deeper in your trusted spaces and find new space for good conversation.
You'll find episodes, transcripts, and lots of other goodies at our website, pushingpastpolitepodcast.com. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Pushing Past Polite.
Pushing Past Polite is an independent podcast with Corey and Laura from Just Educators.
Our cover art was designed by Rachel Welsh DeEga of DeEga Designs, and our audio is produced by Keith at Headset Media. Until next time, don't get stuck talking about the weather. Push past polite.
See you next time.
Jay, you did perfect.